Good morning. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Rachael Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use she, her pronouns. Welcome to you. Old friends and new, young and old, in the Zoom and in the sanctuary, you are an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. Today, our children are enjoying childcare with JC, so the service might be a little more adultish than normal. Still, I invite you to bring your whole self, not just your mind, to our time together today. You may notice that I take my mask off to speak and then put it back on again to sing. Any of our worship leaders who unmask have tested negative for COVID this morning. Our congregation has made the choice to prioritize the vulnerable rather than the comfortable with our masking policy. It's part of how we take care of one another. I call us to worship this morning with these words from the Reverend Julian Jamaica Ninan Soto, whom you may know by their previous name, Teresa I. Soto. In this community, we hold hope close. We don't always know what comes next, but that cannot dissuade us. We don't always know just what to do, but that will not mean that we are lost in the wilderness. We rely on the certainty beneath, the foundation of our values and ethics. We are the people who return to love like a North Star, and to the truth that we are greater together than alone. Our hope does not live in some glimmer of an indistinct future. Rather, we know the way to the world of which we dream, and by covenant and the movement forward of one right action and the next, we know that one day we will arrive at home. Come, let us worship. I invite you to say the chalice lighting words with me. We light this flame to invite a world of peace, where we heal the wounds, where we share what we have with one another, where justice is another word for relationship, and we listen for what love has to say. I invite you to rise in body and spirit to sing our first hymn, There's a River Flowin' in My Soul, which is number 1007 in the teal hymnal and on the screen.
River
to join me in a guided meditation on place. Get a little more comfortable in your body. Soften your gaze or close your eyes if that feels good to you. Notice the way your breath moves in and out of your body. You don't have to change anything, just notice. Feel the way your body connects with the floor, the chair, any surface between you and the earth. In this moment, you are complete. You are whole. You are beautiful. You are always becoming yourself. I invite you to call to mind a place that is part of your journey to this moment. A safe place, a good place. Whether it is a place from long ago, or our sanctuary right now, or wherever you find yourself in this moment, I invite you to observe. With your sense memory or your senses, what do you notice about this place? What is the temperature of the air on your skin? What do you smell? What do you hear? Are there any tastes that you associate with this place? Does the water have a particular taste? And what do you see? With all of your senses, who is there with you? Are you by yourself? Or are there people or animals? Take a moment to feel yourself in the place you chose. What emotions arise for you? Do you feel these emotions in a particular place in your body? Place your hand on your heart, and the other hand on your belly, if that's available to you, and connect to the feeling of safety that drew you to this place. Take 3 long breaths. If your memories took you into the past, come back to this moment now. Come back into focus or open your eyes. Look around. Relax your body in any way that is helpful now. That feeling of safety you noticed is not an external thing. It's part of you. And you can visit it whenever you choose. When I was a teenager in Kentucky, trying to imagine the future I might have, I declared to my friends that I would take a jar of that good Kentucky dirt with me when I went to college. I did not actually do so. Whether because I forgot or thought better of having a jar of moldy dirt in my dorm room. And I forgot that I had even said so until one of them reminded me recently. I remember how in love I was with that sweet backyard loam that held my most mundane adventures. Reading on a blanket while honeybees sampled clover. I remember how magical it was that the dirt could feel both warm and cool to the touch in the early afternoon. I remember how it smelled of minerals and organic matter and dormant potential, a foil to the damp vegetation smell of robust greenery. When I tell you that I love the land of Kentucky, the epicenter of that love is my dad's backyard, and then spreads out to the surrounding countryside, to the farms and small towns, to Louisville and its downtown where my high school is, to the Ohio River, a mile across, to the small town of Cloverport, about an hour downriver, where my grandparents lived, where my parents met as teenagers, where we practiced skipping broken tiles from the tile plant instead of rocks on that deep river's still surface. These are the places of my early years, the places that formed me. I grew to expect a certain role in the hills so that flat places just felt off. My skin craved the humidity. The breaths I took were the exhalations of the local plants. And they have a particular smell and taste that does not exist on this side of the Appalachian Mountains. No matter how much time passes between visits, it seems that the land of Kentucky welcomes me back over and over again. Some part of my heart is tied there amid the bluegrass and clover and to the big sycamore a mile up the road and in the warmth of my relatives and the knowing glances of longtime friends. Of course, it is not the only place my heart is tied. My heart is tied into the rigging and catwalks of various theater spaces and to the people I made shows with long ago. My heart is tied to a pasture full of waist-high millet in New Jersey, and to Sunset Park in Brooklyn, where I flew my kite on beautiful days, and to a monastery in the San Juan Islands, where eagles and ravens supervised my farm chores. 4 years ago, I set about tying my heart into this place. For the first time in my life, doing it on purpose, trying to accelerate the natural process of my devotion. I measured myself against the big oak tree at the Mount Warner Reservation. I ate a takeout burrito on the Amherst Common. I got a tick bite at Wildwood Cemetery. I didn't get the tick bite on purpose. I asked you to paint my office green. I listened to locally programmed radio instead of the podcasts you could get anywhere. And I began opening my heart to the people of this congregation and of the town and general area. Even though someone is new in New England for a very long time, I set about loving this place in every way I knew how, to tie myself in faster. The places of our lives, the ones we breathe in deep, the ones we love, they become part of us, for better or worse. Their patterns and rhythms get inside us. They become part of the decisions we make and the base assumptions that underlie those decisions. Taking places for granted gets us in trouble. Assuming that a place you love could never hurt you isn't a smart move. But it's hard to love a place and have it not be safe for us and the people we love. I'm going to talk specifically about anti-trans legislation and anti-trans bias and the way that's playing out in different places. If that's not what you need to hear today, especially if this is affecting you or your family personally, you're welcome to tune out or walk out or get a drink of water for the next 4 minutes. But this congregation is a place where we try to hold hard things together, to name them out loud and share our strength instead of carrying hard things alone. Because of my deep attachment to Kentucky, because I have so many loved ones there, I pay more attention to Kentucky's politics than, say, Nebraska's. I couldn't tell you whether the anti-trans laws in Kentucky are worse than those in Nebraska, but I know that Kentucky's break my heart more. Both states have outlawed gender-affirming care for trans youth, among other anti-trans policies. There are trans youth in my family in Kentucky, and my heart breaks for them and their immediate families. These laws are not happening because there are no trans people in the 18 states that have passed such laws. There are trans and queer people everywhere, of course. Nor do these states suddenly have a distinct reason to enact such laws. There has been no grassroots movement to pass these laws, even among conservatives. The push behind them comes from a handful of conservative think tanks infiltrating the legislative processes, lobbying Republican state legislators to introduce copycat bills. It's not democracy. It's not what people want. It's fascism, manufacturing power by creating outgroups to persecute and conquer. Of course, Florida is in its own category that is breaking everyone's heart. Florida has effectively made it illegal to be trans in the state, for trans people to even use the bathroom under penalty of invasive gender proving and up to a year in jail. The NAACP has issued a do not travel advisory for Florida for African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQIA people with the statement, "Your life is not valued there." They recommend you don't even have layovers where you don't leave the airport because it is that dangerous. 14 states, plus the District of Columbia, have made anti-trans discrimination illegal, offered more protections for gender-affirming health care, and in some cases offered themselves as sanctuary states. Massachusetts falls into this category of safer places. I'm glad that our members, friends, and neighbors have these protections, as everyone should. But having laws in place to make oppression illegal does not make everything magically okay. I've noticed since moving here that a lot of people have faith in Western Massachusetts, an assumption that bad things don't happen here, or at least not as bad as in other places. Did it break your heart too, to hear what has been happening at Amherst Regional Middle School? Earlier this month, the Amherst High School paper, The Graphic, broke a story that for the last 2 years, middle school students have faced repeated misgendering and a hostile anti-trans environment. Counselors at the school refused to use trans students' correct pronouns or names, held anti-LGBTQ prayer on school property, and made public anti-LGBTQ Facebook posts. The counselors and administration failed to address anti-trans bullying from students. Kids have PTSD, can't go to school, are in serious, serious trouble. A parent filed a Title IX complaint on behalf of her child. After the graphics article, the counselors were placed on leave. The school superintendent took indefinite medical leave. The educators' union held a vote of no confidence in him and also called for the assistant superintendent to resign as well for her role in hiring the counselors and not acting on complaints, but she refused. The school committee appointed an acting superintendent who has placed the assistant superintendent on administrative leave pending the outcome of the Title IX investigation. This is our town. These are our kids. For some of us, this is our workplace, this is our neighbors. And this is the place that when we look at other places being unsafe, we sigh, at least it's not so bad here. Not so bad is still doing profound harm to children, and it is not okay. One of my wise colleagues, the Reverend Rachael Hayes, says this: "It's our work to love the part of the world that we can reach." Honestly, we are not going to make everything suddenly safe again in Florida or even in Kentucky, but it's our work to love the part of the world we can reach. It's our work to do whatever we can to help trans kids in our own community thrive. That work could be a lot of things, but I'm going to suggest 3 specific things today. 1, respect pronouns and names always, and correct others so they remember to use correct names and pronouns too. 2, hold the school committee accountable. 3, locate your love, which is to say, figure out why this matters specifically to you. I've said it before, I'm sure, but it's worth saying 1 million times. When adults respect trans kids, when they use the names and pronouns that let them know that they are seen and respected, their survival rate nearly doubles. If we want trans kids to reach adulthood, if we want trans adults to know that they are welcome in our communities, respecting names and pronouns is essential. You may notice I said respect names and pronouns, not be perfect at. Respecting names and pronouns is not getting it right or being a failure, because it's actually not about you. Respecting names and pronouns means knowing everyone deserves to be called by the name and pronouns that correspond to their identity and their dignity, and then doing your best. If someone changes their name or pronouns while you know them, you might have to practice before it comes out naturally. Same if you are practicing a pronoun that is new to you. Ask the people you are with to remind you, and do the same for them. Practice sharing your pronouns with others and listening for theirs. Hold the school committee accountable. When I say accountable, I don't mean punishment. I'm not coming with pitchforks or saying vote them out. Remind them that they are in relationship with all of us and doing work that will empower or harm children. The Amherst School Committee will have a lot of rebuilding to do over the summer and next year. Go to a school committee meeting, even if you never say anything. Let them know that their work matters to the whole town, not just parents, not just kids. By the way, this goes for towns that didn't just have a crisis, too. And locate your love. Righteous anger can fan the flames that keep you going in this work, but it might burn you, too. It's not renewable, even if it feels like there are always new things to anger us. I don't just want to know what you're fighting. I want to know what you're fighting for. What is the love that carries you through? Is it a person? Is it a place? Is it a community? If we root our hopes for the future in love for the place, the roots have somewhere to go. A plant consumed in the flames of anger might keep you warm, and it might generate some good smoke. A plant taking root in the love of the land might grow as tall as the big oak tree or a sycamore in time. Root your work in the love of the place, not just the love of the trees and the river, but also the people in the place, the people there with you. Love starts with noticing, with paying attention, being willing to be surprised. Whether you're noticing the transit of salamanders or noticing someone trusting themselves enough, or noticing someone trusting you enough to be themselves with you, pay attention. It's hard to love a place and have it not be safe. It's hard to know that trans kids in our town were facing abuse from staff in addition to the bullying of students. It's hard to know that my Kentucky cousins are growing up in a place where legislators are taking away their legal right to be themselves. In this congregation, we share the good news that all genders are whole, holy, and good. It's up to us to put that message of love back into the place we are, starting right here, in ourselves, with one another, in the town, and growing from there. Just as love starts with noticing, it comes back to saying, whoever will hear. This matters. Take a breath with me, please. This was a big one. Wherever these words meet you today, know that you are whole and beautiful, that you belong and are valued, are irreplaceable, and our hearts are open to one another. Amen. Each of us carries sorrows and are lifted by joys along this path of life. We honor these joys and sorrows in community by speaking them aloud to one another and by holding them in silence in our hearts. Come into this time of compassion. Open your heart. A tune weaves under this moment of care. I invite anyone bearing a joy or sorrow this morning to come forward and light a candle. If you wish, you may speak into the microphone. Please keep your mask on to speak unless you took a COVID test before joining us today. Zoom attendees, please raise your hand after the sanctuary attendees are seated again. We will call on you and ask you to unmute. We will also light candles for the joys and sorrows in the chat. I'll light 2 candles to start us off. One for our whole Amherst Schools community, and one on this Memorial Day Sunday for all who died in service to our country and those who mourn them. You are not alone. So I'll light one for the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts. One for the chats. And just one more, because I feel like we need a little bit more light. Spirit of life and love, joy, connection, and strength, we come together to share this journey of life where our joys and sorrows inevitably lie side by side. May we each find the compassion we need for ourselves, for those who journey with us, and for those who share the world with us. May we all be part of creating the beloved community to come. In every injustice dismantled, in every garden planted, and in every kind hand outstretched. Blessed be. Amen. Please remain seated for our meditation hymn, Winds Be Still.
a song by Dolly Parton. The hills were alive with wildflowers, and I was as wild, even wilder than they. Or at least I could run. They just died in the sun, and I refused to just wither in place. Just a wild mountain rose needing freedoms to grow. So I ran over, not fearing go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. And the flowers I knew in the fields where I grew were content to be lost in the crowd. They were common and close. I had no room for growth, and I wanted so much to branch out. So I uprooted myself from my home ground and left. Took my dreams and I took to the road. When a flower grows wild, can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. I grew up fast and wild, and I never felt right in a garden so different from me. I just never belonged. I just longed to be gone. So the garden one day set me free. It's to ride with the wind, since he was my friend. I just let him decide where we'd go. When a flower grows wild, can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. Just a wild rambling rose, seeking mysteries untold. No regret for the path that I chose. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. Wildflowers don't care where they grow.
I invite you to rise in body and spirit where you are, or maybe scooching to be near somebody if that suits your spirit, as we sing our closing song.